This time the Quick Speed Shop. It's the first video of the new year working on the C10. Well, for me, it might not be the first video for you guys, but first video for me working on the C10. I got the fender and the core support on. I'm going to end up putting a whole front clip on this truck, trying to get it aligned. It's a disaster. I spend all day trying to line the sheet metal up. Finally got it, just to blow it all back apart again. So let's start hanging sheet metal and see what we can make this thing look like a truck again. Happy New Year. First C10 video of the new year. I know it didn't get finished last year, so now we got to look at it again this year. And I'm tired of looking at it already. So today, it's a follow-up for where I was last year. I can say that. I got the passenger door all welded up, ground down, the new bottom panel there. I just got to hammer the seam around. And I thought I did really good welding it. I got a tiny little suck in it right here that I got to hammer and try to hammer out. Luckily I can get to it from the back side, but it sucked a little bit, even though, that's what she said, even though I put the compressed air on the welds and stuff, somehow it moved. So I got to finish that. So I got discouraged of that, so I moved on to replacing the bottom on the driver's door, which I did off camera. And it fits tight with the rubber. I just put the gasket in 2 seconds ago, so it's tight. But got a new bottom on the here, AMD bottom section welded in all the way around, and I'm about ready to cut the skin off and put the skin on this side. Man, this closes tight. I got to do a little adjustment of the latch, but the body lines line up pretty good. So before I got carried away, I thought I'd throw the brand new aftermarket fender I got for the passenger, or for the driver's side on to see how it goes. Well, all I can say is terrible. Look at that gap. Now, it's awful. The body line is way off. The lower gap is huge. The upper gap, even if I pulled the whole thing backwards to close up the bottom gap, look how close this top piece is. It's going to run into the door. It won't go in. It's hanging out like a 1/4 inch. Look at that. 1/4 inch here. But it's right up against the cowl. Pretty much on this side. It's hitting somewhere. This has got a gap between it here, which would suck that in, but going in, it's still a horrible gap. It's super wonky. This is the problem of aftermarket, especially like these cheaper fenders and stuff. I want to say I got this fender at AMD when I ordered some Daytona stuff. There's not a sticker in it, but I'm pretty sure that's where I got it from. I doubt they make it. I'm sure they just buy it from somebody else. It was only $229, so you know, that tells you what the quality is dollar-wise. But it fits like garbage. So we're going to do a test. I got this fender, which I bought from my neighbor. And it's an original fender. It's must have been on a C10 Cheyenne or something. Something with a double badge. It had the trim on it here. So there's trim holes. There's rust pits. But the nice part about this fender is it's been sandblasted on the inside where the rust was. It's been poorly repaired in the bottom front corner behind the bumper. But the bad part is, where they all rust up top here, it's been patched here and patched here and patched here with chunks of metal. So I was like, he said it was rust free. I get there and I seen them pinholes. I'm like, it ain't rust free. So I gave like, I don't know, 40, 50 bucks for it just to have it before I bought this fender. So let's do a test. Let's pull this guy off. Let's bolt a factory fender on. And I have the brown fenders that match the brown doors, but they're the same way. They're rotted in the bottom. They got pinholes all through here. All those fenders rot up under this lip, all the way up under here. There's like a, you know, nothing can get in there to paint it, and they all rot. So they're all pinholed across the top here. But I'm not scared to take this aftermarket fender and cut the top of it off and use it to fix that fender if that fender fits better, or we're gonna have to slice this seam, which would probably be less work, and roll it back. But if I can get the body lines to line up at all, it's gonna be a bummer. So let's pull this guy off and throw that factory fender on and see if it makes any kind of difference. We'll do a real life test of aftermarket versus original. Real life test. Did I speak too soon? Because this one also doesn't want to hit the cowl here, and it's also hanging out. So maybe it's this cowl is messed up on this truck on this side. We're going to find out here in a second, because it doesn't seem like it wants to suck in where it's supposed to be. Isn't that curious? Well, now, I might have MF'd that fender too soon, because I get the front bolt in here. Throw a front bolt in. What do we got? Whoa! Let's see what we got here. Well, tell you what. It looks like there is definitely something going on with this cowl, because the fender is up here. I'm blocking the view. The body line is, well, you know what? It's leaning in on the top too, or else it's making it go that way. So I guess I was a little quick to judge the aftermarket fender, because this one, even though it sucked in a lot better, it's still not anywhere near where it's got to be. So there's something going on with this cowl that's hitting the fender, not allowing the fender to do what it's got to do. Yeah, let's see, I got that. Let me drop this down a little bit. You saw all those bolts? Maybe you couldn't tell, but yeah, it sucked it right in. Why won't it go? Maybe. I don't know where it's hitting. Where's my light? I had a light. It's hitting something on here. Oh, it's hitting the cowl back in here. Right back in here, it's hitting the cowl. You know what? Maybe the cowl moved around or got bent or whatever. Yeah, because that makes it stick way out. If I try to get this to go down. Ooh. Let's just put one bolt in it for now. All right, so, man, what in the world is going on with this thing? Where did the light go again? There it is. Yeah, it's hitting the cowl right here behind the mount, which is, man, hanging it way out. Huh. Well, I was too quick to judge. They're both tight here. When you bring them down where they gotta be, the other fender fit the passenger side fender, which I think is new old stock, fit the truck really nice, but this side is terrible. But I think we're hitting there. So let's go ahead and I guess we'll pull the fender back off and see what we got working here. Well, that makes me feel better that they both don't fit right at all. That means that something is awry. Oh yeah, right there. Right there, we're hitting. Don't know why that's all out, but it's definitely making it not fit for crap. So we're going to take care of that right now. Oh, you know what? This is wrinkled here, like I wonder if it got pried on or something. gonna drive it right down in there and get it right out of the way. That is not a structural piece. It looks like it got bent at some point, bent out, like somebody's prying on the door or something. Not real concerned about what it looks like hammering on it because it gets hidden. Well, you know what? This is wrinkled too. That should be rolled around like that. Somebody pried the crap out of this when they were taking the door off. That's what was wrong. Let's try that again. Well, I'm glad that we did that. Now let's just hold it back up here. Where's it hitting now? That's, man, it's really screwed up. Even the pinch weld is all in the way. Huh. That's a weird spot what does it look like on the other side? That's a weird spot to get bent. It's a weird spot to get bent so much like that, but we got to make some clearance. That sucked it in a lot better. Let's try it again. This truck could have been off in the factory and didn't fit for, man, it's still way out. It's fitting the same way, super tight up top. The core support is level on the frame. It's mounted the same to the frame, unless the frame is bent in the front, which I doubt. But both the aftermarket and the driver's side fender are super tight here. It's better fitment-wise. It's sticking out some. It's hitting my rock. It's pretty much flush with the door at the bottom. It's out just a hair. This is too tight here. The body line lines up almost good enough. It could come down just a touch more. It's close. But that tightened it up a lot. But man, it don't fit for freaking anything. The passenger side was nowhere near this awful. Passenger side was good. It's not unheard of that the cowl could be bad, could be off from the factory, and the fender just didn't fit. You know, just the fender didn't fit it all good to begin with. I didn't see all these parts together. These parts weren't together in one piece anyways before. Let's go back to the aftermarket fender. I got it touching up here, but the gap gets super wide. Well, not real wide, but the body line is high here. That's got to come down. It's got to go in, down and in. Unless the door's got to come out, but if I bring the doorway out, the door is already out. Pretty good where it's got to be. Here, where's the hinges? I want to suck it out. Could suck it out a little bit, but the body line is definitely not good on this aftermarket fender. It's going to have a super wide gap down here. I'd have to get it going. The other fender would definitely fit better gap-wise. I mean, this is the side that you're going to see because it's the driver's side, side you're going to see all the time. I don't want it to look awful, but do I really want to spend all the time fixing a stock fender that's rusty and patching it all together? Or do I want to modify this new one? I'd rather stick with the new fender, you know, sheet metal wise, because it's not rusty. But man, it's going to need a lot of work to make it fit. The cowl. Goes like that. Yeah, look at that. The gap is already, pull this down a little bit. There, the gap is already, super wonky. That's gonna go, well, it's not too wonky. That'll pull in. The gap's not too bad with a cowl, but if I pull the fender down, it's going to get real big here. Right now it's got a nice gap. If I pull the fender down to line up the body line, which is off by like 1/4 of an inch, it's going to make a huge gap up here on the cowl section, which would be terrible. Actually, it's, if I slide it over, it's got to be, it's actually really tight. So maybe the fender does need to go down a little bit, because I know there's a gap that gets between here and there that kind of matches the hood gap. So the fender does need to go down. See what I'm talking about? It bolts here. So this piece gets bolted down and in. So it is touching there pretty good. And to line these screw holes up, you got to be over here. So that got to be over here. So it actually is tight on the cowl right now, so it does need to go down. I mean, maybe it's not too bad. Here's the gap. You see the gap nice to the door, then the fender is way wonky. This fender, I think, needs to be sliced. Here, roll that edge in to make that gap up. The gap's going to be a little wide right here at the body line. And then I'm missing some skin right here, so it'll tighten up there, but it definitely doesn't fit like the other side does. That green fender fits better gap-wise, but it was still tight at the top. The things you gotta go to. I mean, if I pull this down and it opens up a really wide gap on this cowl, I could add a little strip of metal to the cowl and widen it out. I'm not opposed to doing that, just to cheat the gap and kind of make it line up. You'd want it, well, the hood gap, you'd want it to match the hood gap, but right now it looks like it's going to be super, super tight on the fender. And that's probably, I've seen pictures of these trucks, they got a bigger gap than that between the cowl and the thing. So the fender definitely needs to come down, the aftermarket fender. So maybe it's not too bad, but this gap is terrible fitment-wise here. I'm going to have to cut and adjust the gap. But I guess I'd rather cut a new fender and play with a new fender than I would to fix a fender that's got this much rust on top of it. You see these pinholes here, pinholes. There's pieces welded in here and filler. There's a piece welded in here of filler. I don't know if you can see the inside of it or not, but spin it around. You see in there that patch, and then there's rust pits, and another patch and rust pits, and all that's all rusty up there. So I'd rather not use this fender if I don't have to. I could sell it at a swap meet cheap. And it's got sins in here that have been welded up. So I'd rather work with the new fender that I paid for. It's just going to take a bunch to make it fit, I guess. Alright, I bolted both fenders on here. I used the stock fender. I was able to get it to fit a little bit better at the bottom. My problem is when I put the rockers in, the inner rockers, where the bolt goes for the lower bolt, it was like a little dogleg piece. I screwed up the alignment on that just a little bit. It's about a half hole off, so I've got to adjust that. And it gets this bracket piece or stiffener that bolts to the cab mount on the back side. I just got to ream this just a little bit and it'll work, but the outer sheet metal it was kind of deformed, right? The replacement part was not the best, so I can make that work. I got the gap kind of tied up, but I put both fenders on so I could see what's going on. You see the cowl piece here, I bolted it down and it's touching here and it's open in the back. And then over here on this fender, obviously I don't have the door on, but it's the best I can do. It's open here in the front and it's high and over laying in the back. So the front clip is this way, is to the passenger side a little bit. So I also re-leveled my frame to make sure my frame is level. We got a bunch of crap going on here, so I think I need to check with a tape measure. So I think I need to check with a tape measure and see how we are, like side to side wise, with the fenders or the core support. And I don't have a bolt in this one. Let me get a bolt in that lower fender. Now the fender is bolted to the core support. Let me measure off the fender, the edge of the fender to the frame rail. We got 20.5 to the inside of the rail. What do we got on this side? Oh, we got 21. So that means, which I think shows up in this gap, yeah, that the front end's got to go this way. So let me, I don't think these are tight all the way, are they? I think they're just finger tight. Let's see if I can slide this thing a little bit. There we go. It moved a little bit. There's a lot of adjustment in the mounts. So we got 20 and 5/8. 20 and 7/8. Look like I'm looking for probably 20 and 3/4, which is about there. And 20 and 3/4, just shy of it. So we're real close. We're in the right in the ballpark. On the core support just a little bit, or the cowl piece, I should say. This is a nightmare trying to line these trucks up. This could tweak around, it could shim this a little bit, kind of tweak this, but there's also filler in here, so this line could be off. The top of the fenders looks like it's got to go in, but it can't. There's not even any shims in it now. It's up tight on the firewall. Over here, this is an absolute nightmare here. This could, I guess, come in, or the fender might need to come out with a shim. I'm not sure exactly what's going on here without the door on to line up the door, but the fender could have to shim out just a hair. This gap is also super wonky. Like, this has got to go down. The cab is on 4 mounts with no shims or nothing. The cab is bolted right to the frame, and I got the frame leveled out, so I don't really want to go trying to shim the cab around. You know, I don't think that would be necessary to shim the cab around. I don't want to be doing that. Like, this panel is pretty flexible. I can make it fit if I have to. I'm more concerned with the fender, the door gaps, than anything else. Like this cowl panel, I don't really care. If it fits perfect, I can monkey it around. You see that gap there's... But my side gap, I got it super, super tight here. Even this fender would have to be trimmed. It's wide on the bottom. It's like the core support's high in the front, but it's not. The frame is level to the back of the frame, to the front of the frame, it's level. And the core support is bolted equally to the front of the truck. It's almost like the front of the cab might need to come up just a little bit to straighten out this gap. That might be the problem. The front of the cab might need to shift up, get a couple of spacer washers between the mount and the what do you call it, to pick this gap up. this is a nightmare trying to get stuff like this to line up, and these trucks probably fit like garbage from the factory, I'm going to guess, and trying to make everything look nice, but using all kinds of mix match panels, aftermarket, original pieces off different trucks. This is... I messed around with the floor and the cab mounts. Could I have the cab mounts picked up like an 1/8 of an inch so the cab is dipping down compared to the core support like on the driver's side? That's possible. That could screw up that fender gap. So if I picked the cab up over here under the cab mount, picked it up just a little bit, I would want to pick it up the same on both sides, I would imagine, unless that side is down and this side is not. Maybe I'll do that. Maybe I'll just unbolt the driver's side, put a shim under the cab, washer under the cab mount, pick this up. That might pick this gap up a little bit, because obviously this is original fender. How could the gap be off? But look at this. You know what? Look at this fender. It's tweaked. It's twisted. See how this line goes straight, then it curves way in. This fender is twisted in. So this fender is probably bent. But the aftermarket fender doesn't fit any better. It fits terrible here, and the gap is worse than this. But I hate this. I just want to spend a lot of time fixing the cab to the doors and everything, and the doors fit to the cab real nice, but then you get to the front clip and it's a freaking mess. You know. But, well, success here. I went and loosened up the front cab mount on this side and jacked it up about, I don't know, 3/16 of an inch. And look at the gap. Now the fender is super tight because it's pulled all the way back, but it straightened out the gap here and it straightened out the gap there. My inner piece where the fender mount goes is still off. What I think happened is this was missing so much metal in the front. The cab mounts were still attached to the cross rail, but the end of it, where it ties into the cab corner over here, the A-pillar, was able to flex up and down. And I think it flexed up some, and it raised this up. Or maybe this thing had a shim in it from the factory. When I got this frame and this cab, it was just thrown on the frame with no body mount. So it could have had a shim from the factory, which I wouldn't have known about. But I went and shimmed it up with 2 big flat washers on top of between the frame mount and the cab mount. And now we're going to let it down and see if it goes back at all. Nope. Well, very little it went back. Geez, I don't want to really put any more shim in it than I have to, but it relaxed the hair. How is the door? The door is where it's got to be. The door is lined up to the cab straight. The fender gap is tight, but it's acceptable now. It's still a little tight here, but it's got a tiny little gap to the rocker, which is good. It's just a touch tight here to the door, which maybe I can make that work, but picking it up. Let me jack it back up here real fast. Let's just get a look at it and see what happens when I left the bolt loose so we can play around. Yeah, it doesn't really change when I get jiggy with it. Now, there, I got a lot of weight on it now. It does open this up just a little bit more, but when I set it back down, I think it stopped moving. So obviously the fender would need to come ahead. This door has got a suck in it right here on this body line which I could tap out, a little bit of reveal here, but it appears to line up. Once the skin goes on here, this down here will open up. Are you seeing me when I'm talking about? I don't know if you are probably, but down here when I put the skin on, this will tighten this hole up here where it's real obvious right here. It needs a little bit of work, and the fender's got to come ahead now, just a touch. But shimming that, picked that up and solved the problem. Whew, I feel a lot better about that. I guess that goes to show you that, I mean, body on frame vehicles, you can do a lot with shimming to make things work. That's what it needed because it straightened all the gaps right out. Straightened all the gaps right out a whole bunch. So it was just, here's one of the washers I used. I had 3, but they're only, you see how thick they are? So just 2 of these. So once it squishes down to the rubber, you're talking like, I don't know, maybe 3/16 of an inch difference made all the difference in the world, straightening that gap out. So this is stuff I got to do before I get ready to paint. I got to get everything all fitted, fit the fenders and everything. Probably get the hood out, bolt the hood on, get the hood fitted. But okay, jacking that cab up helped the aftermarket fender a lot as well. It's fitting a lot better, but it's not exactly perfect, but I got a plan to make it better. And I lost my rubber mallet. Where did that go? I'm slightly tweaking it. Where's the rubber mallet? There it is. It seems like it's got a little bit of a bow in the center where it sticks out, but I think I can make it pretty close. The body lines are a lot closer. It's probably not going to be perfect because it's aftermarket, but I'm hoping to make it as good as possible. So I've got a piece of wood shimming the outer piece here. I'm going to try to tweak it here. I don't know, without deforming it. Without deforming it, maybe. Is that deforming it? Oh, boy. I'm trying to hit on the body line. Oop. I put a little bit of a crinkle in her. Let's see, not bad. I'm trying to... Try not to wrinkle it up. It fits the door pretty good now. The body line is off a little bit, but it's not bad. I can live with that. But the problem is down at the very bottom, it curves in too fast here by the rocker. And if I put it in, bolt it in where it's got to go against the mount, it sucks in like a 1/4 inch at the rocker. So what I'm trying to do is flip this lower piece out without destroying everything. So I can live with this. The gap is super, super tight up top. I got to ream my holes and slide it ahead just a hair maybe because it widens up at the bottom. This gap, I might end up doing a cut and rolling this edge ahead because it's just not quite there. But unfortunately, this lower section, all the what do you want to call it? All the strength and all the inner brace is there, so it's not like I can just, if it needs to be out here, maybe I can just live with it. I don't know. If I leave the bottom out, it really needs to be pushed in there. I mean, this lower gap, I could raise the front of the door just a tiny little bit. I might just have a little mix match here because it is aftermarket. But I got to get this bottom of the fender out. This I can live with. That's really nice. But the bottom's got to come out. And I don't know how exactly I'm going to do that. But it's going to be close. It's a lot better than it was. It needs to go in at the top just a little bit. But it can't really go in at the top anymore. It's up against here. I have to live with that. I really wish that fender wasn't so rusty. I would fix it, but it's going to be so much more work to straighten that fender out. I'd have to basically cut the whole top out of this fender, graft it on that one, then I'd have weld seams the whole length of the fender. It's a lot easier just to pie cut it here, crank this ahead, monkey around down there, and leave the rest of the fender intact. It won't be any big deal to body work this right by the door here. Body work that. And get it to pull out down here. It's like I gotta pie cut the brace, and then I could unfold this here, because this needs to be right here. So I pie cut the brace and bend this bottom out just a little bit, because that's what needs to happen. But the rest of it's not too bad. I can live with it being off a 1/16 of an inch. Actually, the whole door might be low. I'm actually low back there too, so I can, how much room do I got up here? Oh yeah, I can pick the door up just a touch, and both those body lines will line up. That's what I'll do, but it needs some attention. Well, I figured if I couldn't make anything line up on this truck, just add more sheet metal and it makes it even better. Oh my goodness. So I got the, this fender fits better, so I'm like, throw the hood on it. This is a hood I bought at Carlisle, the Truck Nationals. It's a 69 to 72 GMC hood. I'm not sure which years. I guess they all look the same. Maybe the letters are different. I don't know, but I'm not sure what year it is. But it's mint, not rusty, super straight. Looks like original paint on it and everything. So I figured drag it in here. These hoods are so freaking heavy. It's all you can do just to like get it in and put it on the truck without scratching everything. Like I couldn't put it on the hinges by myself. So I got it in here. It is far away from the cowl because there's no hinges on it, obviously. I've got a misalignment here. I got a gap in the front. And this side is tight out. So the fender, either the cab is a touch crooked on the cab and the core support's got to come back this way, or that fender just might need to ream the holes and move it, because that fender doesn't fit the core support the same way this one does, which could be a problem, because I think if I loosen the cab and move everything and move the nose, then it's going to screw this gap up. And actually, it's tighter over there than it is here. So the hood does look like the hood needs to come this way. So it looks like actually it does need to come this way. So I had moved the core support that way to line it up, or it's centered on the frame. So I might have the cab just barely twisted. So the cab is wanting to, is looking to the driver's side, and the hood, once you line it up with the cab, I'm sorry. The cab is looking to the passenger side because the hood wants to overhang here and it's got a big gap over there. So if the hood's lined up to the cab is looking crooked compared to the front of the truck. So the cab needs to slide that way just a hair, and that would slide the hood that way as the core support is equalized on the frame side to side. But before I get there, I have a problem. You see this huge gap in the back? So if I pick the hood up, and I slide it back till it's touching the cowl, I go to set it down, it hits the core support, and it won't close without sliding the head. Now what's up with that? Let me stand it up for a second. Ooh, that didn't sound good. Oh, that didn't sound good. It's grabbing the thing. So this is a GMC hood. I gotta imagine that it's the exact same understructure as a Chevy hood. Why wouldn't it be? And it's hitting the core support here. So what in the world is up with that? Is my first question. Now obviously there's no hinges and there's no rubber bumpers to hold it up, but why is it hitting the core support? Do you guys know, is there a different core support for the GMC versus the Chevy? Or I wouldn't have thought that, but hopefully there's not, because that's going to screw me using this hood. But if I have to, I'll cut the brace. I'll cut the brace here, and I'll do something with the brace to make it work, because the outside of the skin of the hood is mint. Or actually, I could take this skin and put it on a Chevy frame. No, Chevy frames are all rotted out. I bought this hood because it's rust-free. Anyways, without having the hinges on here, which maybe I could put the hinges on if I prop the hood up like this. Oh, that doesn't sound good. Hold it up. Don't drop it. So maybe it would be better to put the hinges on and put the hood on the hinges. I don't know. It almost seems like I need to get everything lined up before I go doing any more cutting. I can fix the door bottom on the driver's door. That's not a big deal, but I would like to, I don't want to get too carried away and get things ready for paint and then find out that everything's screwed up. So that's why I'm working on this. Well, now I got the hood on. That was a struggle. Ripped my coveralls on my knee on the frame. I've done a precursory fit up here. I got to lower this side of the hood down. This hinge is all freaking tweaked. I had to use a bar to get the thing to go into place, which was odd. But I'm having an issue where the hood is hitting the core support just like I didn't have the hinges on it. Well, it's still hitting the core support, and I don't know why. It looks like it's going to miss on this side, but hit on the driver's side, so I don't know what that's about. And the hinges were super stiff. I had to spray them out. My buddy Jordan sandblasted them and powder coated them for me. But I had to spray them to make them functional because they're stiff. They're functional now, but stuff is, see, it's hitting the core support on this side. You hear that? No sir, don't like it. How's my gap? Oh, my gap is too tight when this goes down. It's hitting the core support because I got to pull the hood ahead on this side. Looks like we're going to have plenty of gap on theirs, but did I go the wrong way of the hood? I just adjusted. I might have gone the wrong way. Oh, I did. Oops. Hood's got to come ahead, not behind. They must just barely clear these core supports. Like you can read when the hood is down, this is a GMC hood, but it should be, as far as I know, identical to the Chevy hood every which way but loose. This hood's got to come ahead, got to come ahead here. This has got to be the, whoa, it's a lot. I'm going to take a big swing at it. I put the hinges like mid-adjustment up and down. That's how you set your back up and down height on the hood. So I set that. Let's see, if I pulled that ahead, that's going to push it farther away from the fender. But is it going to clear? It's still hitting the core support. What the heck? How are we looking back here? Man, that comes down super tight. How is that so? Something's wonky AF here, bro. Wonky AF. Okay, that came back up a little bit. This is where all the time goes away. Trying to line junk up with more junk. So I also need to rotate this guy down a little bit because it's high. Let's rotate it just a touch down. How about there? You guys got these trucks and the hinges get sprung a little bit and the back of the hood sticks up. You leave the front bolt tight, loosen the back two bolts, and you pick up on the hood and it pushes the hinge down and that'll suck the back of your action down. Well, let's see what we got here. Core support collision. Right now I'm working on getting the back gap. Oh, that's real tight. The hood's got to come ahead some more. How can that be? Right here, boop, 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 boop. I got a huge fender gap, but it's tight back here like a tiger. Like a tiger. Come here. You see that there? We're super, super tight here. Nice gap over there. Hitting the core support up here. Got a nice height here, nice and flush. This will close down. The hood needs to come this way a little bit, but I could just shove it a little bit. The hinge was tweaked a little bit, but it up here in the front it's good. It looks like it'll have a nice gap closing down nice and pretty much straight. That cowl could get tweaked. That cowl panel, see how it's kicked out above the fender? Back there, the cowl panel could get some monkeying around with it. But this doesn't look too bad on this side, but this driver's side is all screwed up. But it's hitting that core support in there. Because right now we got misalignment in our hood hinge adjustment here. If I can find my light, see how the bolt, you see the slot on the bottom? So I've got the hood pulled ahead quite a ways to get away from the cowl. But on this side, which we got a good gap, you see the hole there? I'm back on the hole right up there. So this side is different than that side, but it could be because the hinge is attached to the fender. Hopefully attachment holes are in the right spot, but the fender came ahead, then the hood could go back, and that would clear the core support. So that's probably the problem. The fender, I tried to tighten my gap up too tight, and the fender's got to go ahead, which would solve a lot of the issues. Oh yeah, because we're touching the door right there. Maybe instead of, I was trying to set the gap and saying it's tight down there, actually the gap it needs some material added to the bottom, not material cut out of the top. So I'm going to go ahead and open the door, remove the two bolts on the fender, or loosen them up, pull the fender ahead, and I can run the hood backwards. All right, move the fender ahead a little bit, widen my gap up just a hair. It needs to come out shim-wise. And I think, I was looking at pictures of other C10s. I got the door sucked in pretty tight to the door seal, so I might adjust the hinges and bring the door out just a little bit to get more in line here. And the gap is going to be a little bit wide. I could drag the door ahead just a touch because it's a little tight here, but I got to watch out for up here in the corner. So anyways, we're gapping there. I figure out what's wrong with the core support. It's bent. Somehow it got bent. If you look at here, there's my light. Oh, you see that little line in the fender right there, like behind the swoop? You see that line in the two pieces? Well, look at it. Oh, we ran out of battery. See on this side? I gotta change the battery. Hold on. Ran out of light battery. On this side, the top of the core support is behind that line by like a quarter of an inch. Well, it's ahead of it this side. The core support's bent, and I got looking at it. Yes, it is. It's rolled ahead, so it must have got bent in the shipping or something. But it's pretty flexible. So let me. I'm gonna have to get a hammer and a block of wood and beat her into submission. Can't just expect to put these trucks together from 15 different parts and aftermarket parts and everything else, and the fender's still out because of the way that it is, but watch this. Woo! Yep. Come on now. It's going. I don't know how it got bent, but it did somehow. Man, gotta go a little bit more. Keep going. Bent in the box. Just don't hit yourself with a hammer. That's the important part. Mercy sakes. All right, let me see what Madam Ruby sees. Okay, we're behind there a little bit there. try that. Let's see if the hood will actually miss it. Oh, it's doing it. It's doing the thing. Oh, fender's tight. Fender needs to come out. Hood is high in the back. Ooh, and tight. High and tight, but it goes down. Ooh, that gap is... Hood's got to come ahead, which will, if I put it ahead, it'll get away from the core support. So my gap is tight. My hinge is low on this side, but I'm not going to worry about that now. We got our big gap here working on our fender. So it needs a ton of adjustment, and or the cab is crooked to the truck. Or do we just slide the core support over and make it line up? Because like the hood, the fenders and the core support need to go to the passenger side quite a bit. But that screws up our alignment here on the cowl. The hood is pretty straight line-wise. I mean, this gap ain't bad here. It's a little wider here. I guess it's not too bad. This is high, but if we hold the hood down, like there. Fender needs to go out. Actually, if I just pulled the fender out a little bit, it might be good, but this side is all wonky. All wonky, but see back here, we're tight and out. This has got to go in. The fender's got to come in. The back of the fender's probably got to go out a little bit, but man, it's going to be really hanging out of the door to do that. The hood, actually the hood's got to go that way. Don't do this at home. Whew. Yeah, the line on the back is pretty good. But we are off like crazy up here, like crazy. I can't move the fender that far. It's got to be to do some with the alignment of the core support is part of the problem, because this ain't going to move in. This fender's not going to move in that far. That one's got to go out, that one's got to go in. But at least we fixed the core support closing issue. Well, it's got to come in quite a bit because that's touching on this side. But this fender's got to go out just a hair. But this won't come in because the bolt is restricting it. If I bring it in a little bit, and then if we put a body shim back here to suck this out just a little bit by the hood hinge, it's getting closer. I'm going to have to play around moving things in and out and in and out. My door is in, like I said, I think I can drag the door out just a little bit and make it fit better. It'll fit better to the cowl too. So pull the door out. We'll do monkey around to the fender. I'm going to re-measure my cab to frame mount here and make sure the cab is square or sitting true on the frame. And I mean, even a tiny little bit of misalignment on the cab would make it read off in the front here, which is possible. I might need to loosen up the cab bolts and shove the cab to the driver's side, because we're hanging over there and we got a gap over here, which would tell me the cab has got to go kirk like this and turn to put the hood there. The fenders would stay attached to the core support here because they're bolted down to the frame. I'll recheck that measurement, but if I could get the cab to come this way just a hair, it would probably help with the alignment. And that would help us out. I'm going to double check a bunch of measurements. Let me come back to you here in a minute. We'll see how I made out, but at least figured out what was wrong in the core support. I have no idea how that got bent, but probably just making it and or in shipping. But at least we got a truck that we can almost close the hood on now. These hoods are so big and heavy and clunky. So big and heavy and clunky. Well, I figured out how to make this work better. I added more parts. I put the grill in, and I'm sneaking up on it. I loosened the cab up, and I moved it like 1/8 of an inch. Just turned it just a touch to try to get this aligned up. and it helps some. And then I ended up scooting the core support, you know, which have big adjustment holes. I had it perfectly lined up on the frame. I ended up sliding it to the passenger side just a little bit, and that helped too. So now on the passenger side, I've got pretty good alignment with the hood all the way back. A nice straight, pretty straight gap. It's just a touch wide in the front, but I could shim it out. One little shim in the back maybe. This side is fitting better, but the aftermarket fender, I think when the hood gets the rubber bumpers in here, it'll kick the back of the... Oh, now I got a safety latch to contend with. Uh-oh. How do you get to the safety latch? Where is it? Open. All right. I think when I put the rubber bumpers on, which hit like here, right? There's one that goes down. Where the heck does it attach to? Oh, right here. And here, I think the rubber bumper will kick the hood over just a little bit. It's got to go that way. I think it'll get it away from the fender just enough. I could shim the hinge away or something. So I'm creeping up on that. I've got to elongate the holes in the fender. See, it hasn't pushed in all the way, and the bolts holding the bolt hole needs to be made bigger in the fender. Right now, the fender's still out. The grill is hitting it here, and that's making it so I can't get the grill back all the way tight on the fender. It should be like this side, which is perfect. This new old stock fender fits mint. Everything is touching there nice. I don't have any bolts in the bottom, but it's down where it's got to be. So, like I said, with the new old stock side is fitting good. I've got one shim in here, but the gap is good. Pretty much good. I don't think it's going to be perfect, but I think it's going to be pretty nice once you put the hood down. That looks like a pretty acceptable gap all the way down there. So I'm happy with that. The front of the hood is going to go down behind the grill, and the grill will pull back another 1/4 inch when I get this figured up, and I might have to do a little hammer and dolly work. And see, it's hitting the grill there, and it is what it is. But unfortunately for me, the aftermarket fender's on the driver's side where I've got to deal with it, look at it. Well, how did this get back off? Did I do something here? No. Oh, well, yeah. So I think I am going to try to pull the door out. I can adjust the hinges on the front of the door, get the front of the door out like a 1/16 or so. I'll let the fender hang over the door just a touch if I have to. That way wind doesn't whistle on the door. The bottom is going to be good. The body line, the door, I got the door just a hair low. If I pick the door up like a 1/16 or so, it's going to be on the money in the back. The front is going to be just a hair low, but it's all I can do with this aftermarket fender. And then I got to work on bringing it out here to meet the rocker panel. So it's going to be pretty close. The cowl band piece, I'm going to work on that last. I'm going to get all the fenders and the hood and the doors all lined up. And then this piece I'll make work. If the gaps are weird, I can pie cut it, I can re-weld it, I can do that separate. I want the big panels to line up. I mean, this gap looks super wide here because I'm missing door skin, obviously, but I'm sneaking up on it. I've been working on it all day long. It's New Year's Eve night. They've actually got, look, it's the Twilight Zone. You keep thinking about me. It's Bill Mooney, or Mummy, or whatever you put it, Bill Mooney. He's a bad man. I'm going to wish him into the cornfield. I like to wish this truck into the cornfield because it's being a disaster. All I want is a junk Chevy truck to go together and fit together. Is it too much to ask for? Like, to take 3 trucks or 2.5 trucks plus aftermarket parts and put them together and have them fit right together once? How hard is that? Well, it's real hard because nothing's right. It's not going to be perfect, but guess what? It's going to be, yeah, if I think that rubber's in there, I'll move over. It's going to be good enough for who it's for. And that's me. I'm not building a customer truck. It's not for sale. Oop, don't push on the center of the hood too much. It's not for sale. It's just an old Chevy truck that's going to end up being Hawaiian blue and turn into a step side. And it's going to be a driveway sitting, run around town driver quality little hot rod truck. Good enough for who it's for. You know, I'm not, if I wanted a $25,000 one, I would have gone about a $25,000 one instead of spending, whatever it is to put this one together. I can tell you it's going to be less than 25 grand when it's done. Ish. And it's going to be all brand new metal. All brand new. Except for the doors and the firewall. So anyways, is what it is. I'm having fun as usual. Maybe not right now, but maybe next year will be better, which next year is going to be in about 2.5 hours. How do you open this hood? Oh my goodness gracious. Where is the... What is this? There we go. But anyways, I got it here under the hood. I got the grill bolts to here. Like, things are kind of going together-ish. Yeah, is what it is. I got the core support locked down. Like, these things have a ton of adjustment, obviously, because they're body on frame, and body on frame cars, if you can get within like an 1/8 inch, a 3/16 of an inch, like even like one is wrecked and they pull them on a frame machine. If you can get close and get some shims in it and get it to fit close, that's how they are. So, you know, the core support is just a touch to the right. The cab is, it is what it is. The bumper has holes. This has holes. So you're not going to notice it being off like 1/4 of an inch. You're not going to notice it. It is what it is. That's why they put the big holes in them so you can move it all around. But I'm doing the best I can with what I got to work with. I really wish I had a factory fender for that side, because I think it would make things a lot easier, because this side goes right together. Anyways, I'm glad I didn't buy an aftermarket hood. I'm glad I found this hood at Carlisle and got to use a original hood, because I'm sure they'd have to fight with the aftermarket hood as well. And I'm glad I didn't buy aftermarket doors. And this aftermarket core support was bent. I figured that out, but it's a whole lot of monkeying around. Like this video, I haven't done anything for you guys to really look at except put pieces on and move them around a little bit at a time. But this is part of the project. Like, this is where all the work goes. And if you were paying a shop to do this, and I'm not even making it really nice. Like, if you're paying a shop to build a nice vehicle, this is where all the money goes in the labor of trying to deal with this nonsense, like making things fit, doing gaps, like cutting fenders and doors and trimming the gaps and adding, and then body working it all smooth. Like, you got hundreds and hundreds of hours of labor into making one of these things like nice for like a, I'll say like bitchin' rides like Ken Dig at Design. They'll put $250,000 in body work and paint on a super high dollar vehicle. So, if I can straighten this thing out and paint it for $1,000, I'll be happy. Good enough for me. At least I got my powder coated hood hinges. They're nice. Yay. And this GMC hood, it's nice. It's the nicest hood I've ever seen. It's mint, no dents, no rust. It says GMC on it. Boom, mint condition. It's even a nice color. But we're gonna ruin it by punching a whole bunch of louvers in it here. And I gotta think about this. I'm gonna take one of the rusty hoods I have, and we're gonna louver the rusty hood first to practice, because we're not gonna ruin the good hood practicing. We're gonna ruin one of the junk hoods practicing, and then it's gonna get louvers, 3 rows of louvers. I gotta try to dissertate from the videos, if that's a word, or from my dad's old pictures. I gotta figure out roughly the placement, but you gotta cut the inner structure bars out, and then there's a long section of louvers and a little bit shorter section, a little bit shorter section. There's 3 sections. They're like, I think they're 2 inches apart, and they're spaced somewhat off the center bar, so probably like 6 inches off the center, and then 3 rows of louvers in the hood. There's going to be probably, looking from the pictures, probably close to 100 louvers in the hood, so that'll be exciting. DA all this original nice green metallic paint off, get down the bare metal, lay it out on the underside of the hood, stamp them in, boop, louvers, bam, and got to weld up the GMC trim holes in the front. And other than that, this hood just needs to get stripped and make sure there's no little dings in it. But seems like it's a really, really, really nice hood that I bought down there at the old Carlisle Truck Nationals before we got thrown out. Where is the hood thing? Boom. So I'm going to keep monkeying around. I'm going to see if I can try to get in here and elongate these holes on this fender and get this fender shoved over where it's got to be. A bunch of brand new bolts, fender bolts, like the black oxide coating 1/2-inch fender bolts. I want to get some 3/8 ones too for doing things, but will this, oh, hootsa! Why won't it? Hoop! It's got to go in just a touch more, and you know what? I got a pin holding this. Whoa! But I can't see at all. What are we hitting on here? I gotta take the grill back out. I just noticed that the attachment bolt that holds the fender this way and where it attaches the grill is all twisted out. That's why the fender's kicked out and the grill won't fit right. So I'm going to adjust that right now, and then I'll bring you guys back in a little bit after I spent like another 3 hours monkeying around with this thing. It's a whole thing. I love it, I love it, I love it. All right, I'll be back in a minute. All right, guys, it's the next day. What happened? The truck all came apart. Well, I had to take it back apart to fit the door properly all the way before I could put the lower skin on this side. And I widened up the gap on the back of the door, so the door ahead, because I had such a big gap on the fender. I got the door fitting where I want it. And what I want to do is I'm going to put the skin on it off camera, but I want to show you a trick I did here. This is like something that high-end builders do when they put cars together, they fit them all together. Usually they'll like drill some holes through the hinge into the car so they can put like a little dowel through, and they can line the hinges and take the hinges on and off and put them back in the same spot. I can't do that because of the hinge plate in this here, but I took my little center punch and I punched the hinge there, and then I punched a little dot in the body, and I punched a hinge there and a dot in the body there. Then I tried to scribe a little line because I'm going to take once I get the door ready to come off, to do the hemming the skin on the bottom. And I did the same thing on the bottom here. I pinned it and I scribed a little line. I want to take the door off. I want to take the hinges off, spray some paint, just like flat black paint behind the hinge. Then I want to sand the hinge all down, prime it, get it ready to paint. And I want to bolt the hinge to the truck with some paint between the hinge and the cowl and the post here. From the factory, they bolted these on in bare metal. As you can see, like there's bare metal behind these bolts, but I want to get them painted. It's too hard to line the door doing it this way. It's a lot easier to line the door taking the bolts out of the door itself, because the holes don't slop around in the door. They're mounted fixed, and they just have in and out for adjusting the gap in and out, but they don't go up and down. And these doors are so heavy and they're so hard to align. I want to get the hinges bolted on in place. So what I'm going to do is, like I said, so that's why I marked them, so I can take the doors off, take the hinges off the doors. I can just paint behind them real fast and then scuff them all up so they're ready for primer and paint. Then I can bolt them back on with my reference marks dialed back in where they got to be, and then they can get primed and painted body color with the doors off the truck. And then I'll paint the doors, jam the doors out, and then bolt the doors on. I'll just have to leave the bolts in the doors when I paint them so they get painted too, but it'll be a lot easier for me to do that. So I did that. I also hogged out this hole and put the fender bracket on for the lower bolt hole here. And I got that painted, and that'll get primed and painted on the inside, but I had to file it out, and I still might have to do a little bit of filing to make it work all the way, but it should be a lot better for the fender mount. The core support, since I've got it aligned this way in where it's got to be pretty much front and rear, I clamped this bar to the frame so I can take the core support off the truck to like put the engine and stuff in and to prime and paint this. but I don't want to lose my alignment. So I've got this bar just clamped on here up against the front of the core support so I can slide it back up and I'll know I'm good there. Then I drew a line here that points at this bolt hole so that'll tell me the side-to-side alignment. So that guy can stay clamped onto the frame rail and I won't have anything in the way of putting the engine in and working on the suspension. So now I can take the core support on and off. Here I had to elongate the holes on this side just a little bit for the aftermarket fender to get it to fit, but it fits all right. Obviously I've got the hood off and the fender off, but I'm just ready. I have the door gapped where I want it now, all the way around. The body line lines up good, and I'm ready to cut the skin off and weld it back on like the other door. And in the next video, I'm going to show you my hemming process to hem the door skin over. Hello? Here he is. I'm filming. Buddy Jackman stopped here for a little bit, so I talked to him. So I forget where I was, but I was showing you the bottom of the door. Next video, I'm going to be rolling this skin around, and I'll show you that. Won't get into it, but I'm just going to put a little bit of panel bond adhesive in the seam, and then hammer it right over and glue it around, and that'll seal it up for weather too. So that's done. Got the door adjusted. That's all set. I showed you the pins and. All right, that's it. This is a pretty long one. Not a lot of exciting things happened, but I literally spent all day, like 7 hours, putting the sheet metal on here and pushing it around and pushing it around and pushing it around and pushing it around again, on and off, on and off, on and off. 7 hours worth of lining it up just to blow it all back apart like this again. But that's what you need to do. You need to fit your stuff. I had to grind some. I had to bash some on this aftermarket fender. The new old stock fender fits mint. If you can go with new old stock stuff, it always fits way better than aftermarket. That's why I'm fixing these doors, because they're original doors. I didn't want to take a chance. Imagine if we had aftermarket cab back doors and fenders trying to fit it all together. A nightmare. So at least we got halfway. The big part, we'll use the doors as an alignment and go from there. But it's not going to be perfect. It's not going to be a show truck. It's going to be a driver for me that's going to be painted. It's going to be a decent driver. Not out looking the wind shows or anything. I want it to look good from, the overall picture is what I'm going for. So if I can get it close, better than factory, or at least as good as factory, with no rust, put it all together, that's what I'm shooting for. So that's it. We'll see you next time while I'm working on them doors, and then we'll finally be on the primer and body work and hopefully get some paint on the cab sooner rather than later. So we'll see you then. Bam. Here at the Quick Speed Shop.